Mary Jane Watson, Raimi Trilogy. Mary Jane Watson starts out as Peter Parker's unreachable dream. She's the girl next door he's loved since childhood but never had the courage to tell. In Spider-Man 1, MJ is dating Flash Thompson, the high school jock, but quickly moves on to Harry Osborn once they graduate. Peter, meanwhile, stays in the background, the quiet admirer. Their bond begins to grow in smaller moments, Peter encouraging her outside her house when she talks about wanting to be an actress or visiting Aunt May in the hospital. These quiet human interactions show that MJ feels a genuine warmth toward Peter, even while she dates someone else. At the same time, she becomes fascinated by Spider-Man. After he saves her from an alley attack, she kisses him upside down in the rain. What she doesn't know is that the two men she's torn between, Peter, her kind friend, and Spider-Man, her mysterious hero, are the same person. By the end of the film, at Norman Osborn's funeral, she finally confesses her love directly to Peter. But he rejects her, believing that his dangerous life as Spider-Man would put her in harm's way. It's a bittersweet ending. MJ wants Peter, but Peter walks away. In Spider-Man 2, her frustration grows. She's pursuing her acting career, even gets engaged to astronaut John Jameson, but her feelings for Peter won't go away. Peter continues to push her aside, missing her play and denying his true feelings. In the famous cafe scene, he even insists he doesn't love her, only for Dr. Octopus to crash in and kidnap her. During the final battle, MJ sees Spider-Man's mask torn off and finally learns the truth. The boy she's always loved and the hero she's admired are one and the same. That revelation changes everything. She leaves John at the altar, choosing Peter despite the risks, telling him it's her decision to make. But by Spider-Man 3, their relationship starts to crumble. MJ loses her Broadway role, feels overshadowed by Spider-Man's fame, and begins to drift emotionally. Harry Osborn manipulates her into breaking up with Peter, and under the influence of the black suit, Peter grows arrogant and cruel. In one of the trilogy's most infamous scenes, he humiliates MJ by showing off with Gwen Stacy in the jazz club. Their love seems broken beyond repair. Only after Harry's sacrifice and death do Peter and MJ reconnect, holding hands in silence. It's a reunion, but a fragile one. Mary Jane's arc is one of constant cycles: attraction, rejection, and reconciliation. She falls for Spider-Man without knowing it's Peter, discovers the truth in the sequel, and ultimately chooses him, only to nearly lose him again. What starts as Peter's fantasy ends as one of his most turbulent and unstable relationships. Gwen Stacy, Spider-Man 3. In Spider-Man 3, Gwen Stacy is introduced as Peter's classmate and lab partner, a kind, genuine presence who contrasts sharply with the turbulence of his relationship with Mary Jane. Gwen notices Peter's talent and kindness right away. Their connection feels light and wholesome, and she shows him a kind of admiration that boosts his growing ego. Things take a dramatic turn when Spider-Man saves Gwen during a public incident at a skyscraper. Dangling from a broken beam, she's rescued in front of a huge crowd, and from that moment, her admiration for Spider-Man becomes more visible. To Peter, who's increasingly influenced by the black suit and basking in public praise, Gwen's attention feels like validation. She represents the admiration and recognition he craves at a time when his relationship with MJ is strained. But Peter's arrogance quickly warps the situation. Instead of appreciating Gwen's kindness, he uses her. The low point comes during the infamous jazz club scene. Peter brings Gwen there, not out of genuine affection, but as a way to humiliate MJ. He shows off his new swagger under the symbiote's influence, dancing with Gwen in front of MJ, completely oblivious to how cruel he's being. When Gwen realizes what's happening, she's horrified. Instead of getting angry at Peter, she shows her integrity by apologizing to MJ, admitting she didn't realize she was being used as part of his petty jealousy game. After that, she steps away, her story quietly ending. Gwen's arc in Spider-Man 3 begins with genuine admiration and potential warmth, but ends with disappointment. She's not a villain, not a rival, just an innocent person caught in Peter's downward spiral. Her brief presence highlights how far Peter had fallen under the black suit, and how badly he was hurting the people around him. Ursula Ditkovich, Raimi Trilogy. Ursula Ditkovich, the daughter of Peter's grumpy landlord, never officially becomes Peter's girlfriend, but her small role across the Raimi Trilogy leaves a surprisingly big impression. She isn't glamorous, she isn't tangled in love triangles, and she isn't caught up in the chaos of Spider-Man's battles. Instead, she's memorable because of her warmth, kindness, and quiet support. Ursula's arc begins in Spider-Man 2 and continues into Spider-Man 3. She's shy, soft-spoken, and lives in the same rundown apartment building as Peter. While her father is constantly pestering Peter for rent, Ursula offers him compassion. She brings him milk and cookies when he's depressed, encourages him when he's at his lowest, and never judges him for being late, broke, or exhausted. These small gestures make her stand out in stark contrast to Mary Jane, who often criticizes Peter for his failures. What fans picked up on, and why Ursula has built a cult following, is how she represents the love Peter never had, but arguably always needed. She never pressures him, never demands explanations, never lashes out. She simply notices when he's struggling and quietly tries to help. For Peter, who spends most of his time juggling lies and emotional turmoil, Ursula feels like a rare moment of peace. Her ending isn't a breakup or tragedy, but rather an open question. Ursula never finds out Peter is Spider-Man, and their connection never develops into romance on screen. But because of how supportive she was in the little moments, many fans still wonder what could have been if Peter had chosen her instead of MJ. Betty Brant, Raimi trilogy. Betty Brant might not get the spotlight that Mary Jane or Gwen Stacy do, but she's an important part of Spider-Man's love life history, especially in the comics. In fact, Betty was Peter Parker's very first girlfriend in the early stories. She worked as J. Jonah Jameson's secretary at the Daily Bugle, where Peter was a young photographer. Their relationship was short-lived, mostly because Peter's double life made it impossible to sustain, but it set the template for the struggles that would follow in all his romances. In Sam Raimi's trilogy, Betty Brant, played by Elizabeth Banks, has a smaller role. She works at the Bugle, trading quick conversations and knowing smiles with Peter. There's a hint of playful chemistry between them, particularly in Spider-Man 2, but it never develops into a full romance on screen. Still, fans of the comics could see the nod to her history as Peter's first real love. In the MCU, Betty Brant returns in a totally different form, played by Angourie Rice. This version isn't tied to Peter romantically at all. Instead, she briefly dates Ned Leeds during their European trip in Spider-Man Far From Home. Their whirlwind romance and breakup by the end of the vacation is played for comedy, showing how teenage relationships can flare up and fizzle out just as quickly. Gwen Stacy, The Amazing Spider-Man. Gwen Stacy enters Peter's life in The Amazing Spider-Man 1 as his classmate and intellectual equal. Unlike MJ in the Raimi trilogy, Gwen notices Peter right away, not as a nerd to be overlooked, but as someone she's genuinely drawn to. Their connection starts with playful banter, and when Peter works up the courage to ask her out, she doesn't brush him off. The chemistry between them is instant, authentic, and grounded. The real turning point comes when Peter reveals his secret. Unlike most love interests who spend years in the dark, Gwen finds out early on that Peter is Spider-Man, and she embraces it. Instead of fear or rejection, she admires his courage and intelligence. Their love blossoms quickly because it's built on honesty, not lies. Gwen doesn't wait on the sidelines. She jumps in, using her knowledge at Oscorp to help him. She chooses to be his partner, not just his girlfriend. By The Amazing Spider-Man 2, their relationship is tested by the weight of Peter's guilt. Before Captain Stacy died, he made Peter promise to keep Gwen out of danger. Peter tries to honor that promise by breaking up with her, convinced it's the only way to protect her. But Gwen refuses to be pushed away. She asserts her independence, reminding him that her life is hers to choose. And she chooses him. They reconcile, and just as things stabilize, Gwen reveals she's planning to move to London for a scholarship. It forces Peter to confront the idea of losing her to distance instead of danger. Then comes the tragedy that defines their love story. During the battle in the clock tower, Gwen insists on helping Peter stop Electro and the Green Goblin. But in the chaos, she falls. Peter webs her at the last second, but it's too late. The snap of her fall is one of the most devastating moments in superhero cinema. Gwen's arc is unlike any other. She isn't kept in the dark, she isn't a passive bystander, and she isn't defined by waiting on Peter. From beginning to end, she's his partner in every sense. Their love begins in honesty, grows in defiance of promises, and ends in heartbreaking loss. For many fans, Gwen Stacy remains Peter Parker's most authentic and tragic romance. Felicia Hardy, The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Felicia Hardy is one of Peter Parker's most famous love interests in the comics. Known as Black Cat, she's a thief, an anti-hero, and someone who shares an electric, complicated romance with Spider-Man. Their dynamic has always been built on tension. Peter is drawn to her thrill-seeking danger, while she's fascinated by his sense of duty. It's a relationship that's passionate, morally gray, and completely different from the more traditional loves like Gwen or MJ. That's why fans were excited when Felicity Jones was cast as Felicia Hardy in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. She's introduced as Harry Osborn's assistant at Oscorp, working closely with him while he spirals into desperation. There's a brief spark of intrigue when she and Peter cross paths, just enough to make audiences think this was a setup for something bigger. But the romance never gets off the ground. Felicia never interacts with Peter beyond surface-level conversations, and the film never hints at her alter ego, Black Cat. Instead, she's reduced to a background character, one of many threads in an already overcrowded movie. Her story arc starts with potential, the chance to open up one of Spider-Man's most iconic romances, and ends with nothing. The reason? Sony's plans for a larger Spider-Man cinematic universe collapsed when the film underperformed. Felicia's cameo was meant to tease her becoming Black Cat in future movies, possibly even getting her own spin-off. But with the franchise scrapped, that storyline was abandoned. So while Felicia Hardy in the comics is one of Peter's most thrilling relationships, in the films she's a love interest who never was. Her story begins as a tease but ends as one of the franchise's biggest missed opportunities. Liz Allen, Spider-Man Homecoming. Liz Allen is Peter's first real crush in the MCU, the confident, popular girl who seems out of reach but still approachable. In Spider-Man Homecoming, Peter is head over heels from the start. To his surprise, Liz notices him too. She laughs at his awkward jokes, invites him to her party, and shows genuine interest in who he is. For a moment, it looks like Peter might actually get the kind of normal high school romance he's always longed for. But being Spider-Man always comes with a price. Peter ditches her at her party to chase down criminals. He leaves her behind at the academic decathlon because he's busy tracking the Vulture. Each time, Liz forgives him, but it creates a pattern. Peter's double life keeps sabotaging their relationship before it can even take off. Things reach their high point when Peter works up the courage to ask Liz to the homecoming dance. She says yes, and for a brief moment, everything feels perfect. Peter's dream of a normal teenage romance is finally within reach. Then comes one of the MCU's most shocking twists. Peter arrives at Liz's house to pick her up, and the door opens to reveal Adrian Toomes, her father, and the Vulture. The dinner table scene that follows is filled with unbearable tension. Liz happily chats away, completely unaware that her father has realized Peter is Spider-Man. Toomes even threatens Peter in the car, while Liz is still blissfully in the dark. By the end of the night, Peter abandons Liz at the dance to stop Toomes, and everything unravels. When the truth about her father comes out, Liz is devastated. Her family is forced to leave New York, and she leaves Peter behind, heartbroken and betrayed, not because he cheated or lied, but because his world destroyed hers. Liz's arc begins with an innocent high school crush, builds into a sweet but fragile romance, and ends in painful collateral damage. She never learns Peter's secret, but she pays the price for it anyway. Michelle MJ Jones, MCU. When MJ first appears in Spider-Man Homecoming, she's not positioned as Peter's love interest at all. She's the sarcastic, socially awkward classmate who lurks on the edges of the group, throwing out dry one-liners. She teases Peter, calls him out for sneaking away, and seems to notice more than she lets on. At this stage, she's more of a background character, but the seeds of something deeper are quietly being planted. By Spider-Man Far From Home, those seeds start to bloom. Peter, fresh off the loss of Tony Stark, plans to confess his feelings during their class trip to Europe. Every scene between them is filled with nervous tension, stolen glances, half-finished conversations, and Peter's constant fumbling attempts to be romantic. The big moment comes when Peter finally admits his feelings, only for MJ to casually reveal she already knows he's Spider-Man.
That's what you were going to say, that you're Spider-Man.
Instead of being shocked or horrified, she accepts it with her usual dry wit. This honesty sets their relationship apart from every version before it. There are no masks, no lies, no double lives. MJ knows who Peter is, and she chooses him anyway. Their kiss by the end of the film marks the true start of their romance. In Spider-Man No Way Home, their bond matures under impossible pressure. MJ isn't just Peter's girlfriend, she's his partner. She helps him strategize, keeps him grounded, and even joins Ned in opening portals during the multiverse crisis. She refuses to be sidelined, proving she's as much a part of his journey as anyone. But their love story ends in sacrifice. To repair the multiverse, Peter agrees to Doctor Strange's spell, one that erases him from everyone's memory, including MJ's. In the final scene, Peter visits her at the coffee shop, ready to reintroduce himself. She smiles politely, with no recognition of the life they shared. Peter stays silent, choosing her safety and happiness over his own heart. Zendaya's MJ begins as an outsider, blossoms into Peter's most authentic relationship, and ends in quiet tragedy. It's a love story defined by honesty, partnership, and ultimately, sacrifice, one of the MCU's most emotional arcs.